Grandmasters week number 5, the final day of gameplay, is about to begin for the Americas region. Coming up, we have Eddie versus Nalguidan. Eddie and Nalguidan both have had a lot of experience so far, being two players who've been there since the beginning. And I know that Nan going into this week was feeling a little shaky because he wasn't sure about whether or not he would be able to hang. He even tweeted about his lack of confidence, saying that he wasn't sure if Grandmasters, he could necessarily compete at that level anymore. But he's been piecing it together slowly but surely, and making 2 top 8s, making a deeper run in one of them, being able to get a really crucial victory last time we saw him on broadcast. Nalguidan is always just kind of hanging in there, and I think the effort and the hustle that he's kind of shown, especially with how much passion that he kind of brings to the table, because he clearly cares a lot about competing, takes it very seriously. You only can wish the best for him. He's going to have this Zoo, Demon Hunter, and Rogue with his Warrior band. Pretty straightforward lineup. We'll see if Eddie, with his Bring the Priest, will leave up Warrior, but it doesn't seem to be the case here, TJ.
No, another player bringing Priest but banning Warrior, despite many players thinking that it's very favored against Warrior. It's not that simple, though. Priest is only one deck in the lineup, so Warrior matches up against something else. Warrior has incredible matchups against just about everything else. Not surprised to see it banned away. I still think Priest has some good matchups against Demon Hunter and, to an extent, Zoo Warlock. Some players say that it's also favored against Rogue, though I think that one's closer and more debatable. This version may be a little bit more so that Eddie's bringing. But we'll talk about that more. If it comes down to that in the series, we're going to start things off with a good old-fashioned Demon Hunter mirror match. And there are some slight differences, but I think when considering the overall metagame in Americas and how not often the deck lists differ by this many cards, Eddie has the double Sightless Watcher and double I-Beam and Frozen Shadow Weaver, whereas Nalguidan has 1 I-Beam, an Ashtongue Battle Lord, which is the 3/5 taunt with lifesteal for 4, and a Frenzied Fellwing. So he's kind of put in a couple one-ups that seem like they're poised for the mirror matchup, because Frenzied Fellwing gives you some explosive board presence in the early game, whereas Ashtongue Battlelord can give you some stabilization in the mid game. But it lost all 3 of the games in his loss to Monsanto yesterday, which is pretty brutal. Some games he had poor draws, some games he had decent draws, but just got outpaced. It's hard to say for certain, but this is the kind of the deck that I have my eye on for Nalguidan, because it was the deck that performed quite poorly yesterday.
Right. And Nalguidan's kind of been struggling to get that Demon Hunter started. It started in 0-2 in the season, as I believe he specifically called out that Eddie was the one farming him a lot. This is back in the Swiss tournament stages, of course, that we were referencing when Nalguidan was on a tear, but since it kind of started off 0-2. And Eddie now, with his Twin Slice, going to be able to essentially steal turn 1 back. A lot of times these Twin Slice, while really effective, especially when you have a Satyr Overseer in hand, you're just trying to steal back the initiative, so that way your opponent doesn't get to develop and push damage.
Yep.
And this position, Nalguidan, you can see, wow, I feel like I'm going second here, even though he's the one first to 2 mana crystals, and that's the power of Twin Slice in this matchup. And I like the Twin Slice play a lot more because Eddie does have follow-up. I do feel like we've seen people in the past commit Twin Slice and not actually have legitimate way to follow up with Satyr Overseer, but Eddie has both the I-Beam and the Umberwing, both pretty decent tools to win back the board if he falls too far behind.
Yeah, because there was actually a couple ways to play that turn, right? Could have coined out the Umberwing with 1 Twin Slice, but then his turn 2 play is really weak unless he picks something up. This is the best way to kind of guarantee that he has a good Satyr Overseer play on 3. which this will do, and he'll be able to kill the Beaming Sidekick buffed Battle Fiend, and Nalguidan really needs something big off the top, or he's going to quickly fall very far behind on the board. Well, that's playable.
Yeah. And there's honestly, like, what's just important is to keep up the pace of play. Keep developing stuff, because like you said, if he doesn't have anything else, he's just going to fall too far behind. He already is going to be super far behind, because based off what we see, Eddie's going to essentially full clear everything anyways. Since Nalguidan gets the Battle Fiend out, and Eddie with his Satyr Overseer plus attack should be able to clean off at least the Battle Fiend, and then Nalguidan has to answer that Satyr Overseer.
Job's done.
Which is currently not a good way to do so. Outside of just hero power, really. Plus the trade, but then he's going to start to leave things on board. Again, Nalguidan's in a situation where he's relying on the top of his deck. Gleipon out of his skull, still a few turns away.
Demons.
If he picks up another expensive card,
Demons.
this one's going to be tough. But if the game goes late, he does have that resource advantage with Skull of Gul'dan. It's just a matter of how much can he stabilize before that happens.
Yep, and you take a look at Eddie's hand too. Even if Nalguidan does find a way to get out Gleipon out of Skull of Gul'dan, maybe Eddie's just on that burn plan. So establishing the board now for Eddie is of the utmost importance. I was thinking about Satyr Overseer. Eddie's going to take his time to at least mull over any kind of deviation of it, but I still think Satyr Overseer is the best play here. And Eddie, he's seriously considering deviating, considering that he can also play Satyr Overseer on 4 and develop this Battle Fiend here. So a slower play, which incidentally might actually be better for Nalguidan as opposed to playing that Satyr Overseer.
Yeah, a couple interesting things there. Eddie knew that if he played Satyr Overseer and traded over Dominion on the other side of the board, it would mean that just a hero power plus the 1/1 that was on board would be able to kill his Satyr Overseer. And then he'd be kind of stranded with not a fantastic turn 4 play. He would have had I-Beam, but if Nalguidan just reacted, I-Beam would kind of be dead and he'd just be playing a Battle Fiend. This way, if Nalguidan has removal, he's going to use it on this Battle Fiend to try and get tempo back, and then Eddie has a nice turn 4 play by being able to set up Satyr Overseer. So I think I like this one overall better. Though the way things did pan out, I think Eddie would just be able to stick more power the other way around, or at least more immediate power, because Nalguidan would have spent this whole turn just removing Satyr Overseer and still leaving the 2/2.
This is what I like to call a tactical rope. Nalguidan knew the moment he drew this card what he was going to do, but you don't want to necessarily give away information too easily to your opponent. A lot of times, if you just immediately play that, your opponent can interpret it very easily as the fact that that's your only play. So he's like, okay, if that's your only play, then you must be holding heavier cards because this is a very inefficient turn. Therefore, these are the cards I'm going to start playing around. And you might think that it's overthinking things, but players at this caliber will be looking for any bit of information that the opponents give them for free. So, Nalguidan taking his time, thinking through all the possibilities of what he wants to play in the future turns, but more importantly, just kind of making sure that he doesn't rush here, because we've seen some players make really easy reads because their opponents play too fast.
Yeah.
And if Nalguidan can pick up Twin Slice, he will be cooking. But that's a 2 out of 23 here. Very low percentage odds. But at least he still has playable stuff. This Frozen Shadow Weaver, for example, because you can freeze. You can freeze actually a couple of things. You can justify freezing, obviously, the face to stop your opponent from being able to play any kind of attack, and Satyr Overseer is not really much of a threat if your opponent's hero can't attack.
Job's done.
Now Nalguidan chooses to attack the face. Now this is something that I actually was thinking about, TJ, is whether or not we actually use our hero power to attack this other Satyr that got summoned. So that way we can officially clear next turn with the Glaive Bound of Death. But I think that maybe in Nalguidan's mind, one, he doesn't want to take that damage freely. Two, the Frozen Shadow Weaver, as far as he knows, might be able to pick up that value trade anyways.
Yeah.
And then three, it might be too much information again given to Eddie. That is a nasty I-beam.
It is. Yeah, this one's really tough. Nalguidan has had these very expensive cards in hand, and Skull of Gul'dan had, outside of Twin Slice, had no chance of even being outcast that turn because it's blocked on the far left. And now it's even further away because of the fact that, oh, I guess next turn he could play it, but Crimson Sigil Runner was blocking it from being able to play this turn. Not the worst thing in the world. Nalguidan's still able to get rid of this Satyr Overseer finally, but at what cost, right? Eddie now has the ability to play Warglaives of Mazanoth with a hero power, push 9 damage to face, still have Warglaives with Metamorphosis in hand. There's also the option of just putting out the Metamorphosis now and then following that up with Warglaives of Azanoth. But the Warglaives does seem clear, and it gets that development out of the way, so you have options next turn. And Nalguidan, he's running out of time. And as we noted when we were breaking down these decks, Nalguidan only plays a single I-Beam. So he doesn't even have that kind of stabilization outs from the Skull of Gul'dan, being able to pick up a couple free I-Beams. Because of the fact that he is just a little far behind. Well, that's actually not bad, because now he can get some board presence, clear something off, and Crimson Sigil Runner, and hope that he gets a big skull next turn to bring him back in the game.
Right. I think this was the tempo that he needed. He obviously wants to shut down some of these minions. However, Eddie does have Metamorphosis. Metamorphosis is 5 damage. Got 5 on the board. He's 1 damage off lethal. Twin Slice will do it. Eddie does not find it, but I think that still is not going to discourage him from going for this Metamorphosis setup here. I guess in Eddie's mind, he's first going to think, with 8 showing and very easy to get 9th with damage, is there any way that I'm throwing by not killing off a minion here? Because he does have inevitability, right? Like if he swings with his Metamorphosis, or swings with his Warglaives, Metamorphosis still is lethal the following turn if he clears off this this Glaive Bound. But if Nalguidan has cards like I-Beam that he's able to pick up later, Eddie might incidentally remove the ability for him to kill the following turn. So it's a little delicate dance that he just has to weigh.
Well, he could trade off his own minion. Hero power. Attack Glaive Bound Adept. Attack face. Metamorphosis face. And then trade off his 2/2.
Oh, okay. That way there's no I-Beam targets.
Yeah, it means that Nalguidan would also have to play a minion.
That's
and I-Beam his own minion.
Oof. All right, well, he does have 3 draws off the Skull of Gul'dan. There's inevitability, but he does have the ability to summon minions just through the Umber Wave. But even then, he needs a little bit more. He needs... he needed to like kill Eddie this turn. I think it actually had to be specifically Altruist plus a free card plus these 2 Twin Slices.
Yeah,
I think that might have actually been able to do it.
Yeah, because each of those Twin Slices would have actually, if they were in the correct position, would have been 4 damage apiece. So it's 8.
Right. Had he picked up Altruist instead of that Satyr Overseer, I think he actually might have had it.
It would have been very close. Very close indeed.
Yep. Like you said, each Twin Slice does 4, and then the Crimson Sigil Runner does 1, and then you have that draw at the top to potentially do it. So quite close, despite the fact that it felt like Eddie was firmly ahead for a while. You know, Nalguidan had a couple of outs there, and that's the power of the Demon Hunter. You can't truly ever count it out of a game until the final hit points are dealt. Otherwise, they will find a way to try to piece together comeback.
Yeah, can get very close, especially considering things like Frozen Shadow Weaver, which can cut off a game plan, like Glade-bound Adept outs and things like that. So, a big win, though, in the mirror matchup. Eddie taking a 1-0 lead. You know, winning mirrors in Conquest is oftentimes, if strategies are similar, such a huge, because it just means that unless it's a deck that you're almost guaranteed to win within the series anyway, which I would not consider Demon Hunter to be the case, it just gives you such a leg up.
Definitely, and I think that leg up is going to be important here. Nalguidan needs every help that he can get, and looks like he is going to turn to his Zoo Warlock, the charged Zoo Warlock, featuring Uga Warrior, Stone Tusk Boar, but no Wolf Riders. It's a pretty interesting choice, right? Like, we've seen, I think this officially has given us every permutation of charged Zoo Warlock except for the one with only Stone Tusk Boars.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, honestly. Because the Wolf Rider has like the most potential reach, but Uga Warrior has better trade potential early on. The one of Stone Tusk Boar has neither. It has terrible trade potential, and its reach is not all that great, even when buffed by the Scrap Imp. It does give you some extra flexibility with like Magic Carpet, because it's a 1-drop, so it gets buffed by that. But that's the inclusion I like the least of the Stone Tusk Boar. Like, Bloodyface has been winning with the Zoo Warlock that only includes Wolf Rider as the only charge min, and it seems to be working out quite well for him. He's 3-0, and he's brought the deck a few times. So this one obviously not performing that well, but we shall see. It's Eddie does have some slower matchups where the charge minions could work out. His remaining decks are Priest and Rogue, and I think the charge minions giving you extra reach and extra damage against decks that need some time to stabilize is beneficial. But his ability to get on the board quickly is not as powerful. So you kind of trade more potential damage from hand later on in the game for a lack of early board presence should you not get the Imprisoned Scrap Imp. I've said it a couple times over the last couple of days that it feels like the charge versions and specifically the charge versions that don't run any additional board presence tools like the Serpent Egg or the I can't think of the name right now. The Genius, Evil Genius.
Evil Genius.
Yeah, Evil Genius. They're more all in on having Scrap Imp hands. And while that can work out sometimes, it just makes the deck more inconsistent. And I feel like that overall is a detriment. But when you're just playing, one match, sometimes you just get a quick win with Zoo Warlock to start things off, and that's all you needed. So, gonna see it versus the Rogue here. Eddie on the play with 1-drop potential. Like to see that.
Oh yeah. Pharaoh Cat. Pharaoh Cat into 2-drop, into Seal Fate, into Miscreant. That would be the ideal setup. And you know what? If he doesn't, it's okay, because he's got another Pharaoh Cat. That's the kind of curve you need to beat Zoo. Backstab would probably tie everything up together very nicely. And as long as Nalguidan does not start off with Scrapping, which he has not, Eddie should be able to answer almost everything that comes out of Nalguidan here. This is a great opening hand for Rogue. That's all it is. It's an opening. We've seen some Rogues falter a little bit. And if I'm Eddie, as much as I'd like to play as Pharaoh Cat, this is a free opportunity to dagger up and then just kind of set up the opportunity to answer anything that Nalguidan plays.
Yeah, it's also like a situation where if Nalguidan does not present a Seal Fate target next turn, if Eddie plays the Feral Cat, he gives up his Evil Miscreant activation on 4. If Nalguidan were to have like a slower start and not be playing minions on the board, right? So
there is the option to not attack with the Feral Cat. And Nalguidan life taps, right? Because the most common play here for the best power spike for your opponent is Scrap Imp or Expired Merchant. But if they did play Scrap Imp, you don't have a Seal of Fate target like you're talking.
Yeah.
And you know, how much is that 1 damage in the very beginning as impactful as being able to guarantee that Seal of Fate goes off? Now, of course, he does have the ability to Seal Fate other targets on his side of the board, including his own health. But, you know, we'll call that Plan B. Oh my.
Whoa. All right. Now get on going with a deviation from the obvious play of Expired Merchant and draw a bunch of cards just because he feels like he needs to fight for board here. There's not a way for Eddie to answer this Magic Carpet. There would have been a way if he had kept the Blackjack Center, but he might have just played that on 1 anyway. And because of this, it's a little bit of an awkward turn. He plays Ambush. Eddie knows that Nalguidan coined out this Magic Carpet because he has 1-drops in hand that he wants to dump for board presence. And it's likely to be easily traded into by one of those 1-drops. So banking the damage now seems like a wise plan for Eddie by going with the Seal Fate. Opens up more options for him next turn. And he will deal with this Magic Carpet. It's just going to be slightly delayed. I honestly still felt like Evil Miscreant, or Expired Merchant, excuse me, on that last turn was slightly better than Magic Carpet.
I got you, friend.
Because there's nothing for you to even react to with this Magic Carpet yet. There was just a Feral Cat on board.
That's an upgrade. Probably.
All right,
But
well,
Job's done.
Does allow him to get onto the board.
yeah. And honestly, just kind of make his board really annoying and hard to deal with.
Ooh,
And he does have that Shadow Step, which is effectively like a backstab if you can utilize it with the Cobalt Lackey. Eddie, the Evil Miscreant here looks good, although there is merit to potentially deviate from it. I kind of hard-pressed to imagine a better play. The Cobalt Lackey, Evil Miscreant, Shadow Step the Lackey, kill off the Magic Carpet. And another Cobalt Lackey. Oof. So Nalguidan's been waiting for this opportunity to drop Expired Merchant, and now pretty much has the only play available to him is that Expired Merchant, at least the one that's viable to keep him going in this game.
Okay. Nightshade Matron, a nice pickup, because once this Expired Merchant dies, Nalguidan will be able to keep up the card draw.
Right.
Also just a good tool for board presence in the meantime.
Is it ever worth trading as opposed to going face here? Nalguidan clearly just wants to pressure his opponent. He has 2 more sources of damage from the hand. He's got the Luga Warrior and the Soulfire. So pushing that damage is going to matter if it comes down to the last few hit points here, but Eddie still has some really good tools.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a good one. The land of 2/1s, the 2/3 is king.
Yeah, that's also a decent one, to be honest.
And the way this secret is set up kind of disincentivizes that Nalguidan to trade even more, although...
You could play Voidwalker first, and check for ambush.
Yes. That's a good option.
Because if he
also
goes with,
go for Soul.
he could go for Soulfire. Because the Expired Merchant, he wants to kill this op so he can Nightshade Matron and get the redraw. But he was worried about Bamboozle, but gets the word that is not Bamboozle and is going to get to fight for board.
Yeah, kind of like knew that it was likely to be ambush. Oh, although, does that change anything? The Abusive Sergeant. Kind of. Because now he can, you know, remove that ambush minion, remove the 2 attack, and force 2 minions to go into that shield bearer, or at least a dagger up.
Yeah.
I think there's merit in that. I think the Voidwalker here, it's just going to push damage with it. Oh, that's what, he just wants to convert all this into raw damage. Okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Given his hand.
I don't think it's going to work out here. Eddie has like another Shadow Step. And so he can set up a taunt, which heals him. And then he can pick apart this board, right?
Yeah, I wonder if it's worth it to play Shield of Galakrond. Because you have the mana for the Lackey, and if you pick up like a Rush Lackey or even another Kobold Lackey, that's like even more efficient. But the way Nalguidan's been playing, he's been just shipping damage to face every turn.
Yeah, I think that when your opponent's pushing this aggressively, they have communicated to you through their actions that they want to burn you out of the game. Shadow Step on the Miscreant. Okay, that does give him flexibility.
Yeah, if he gets a Rush Lackey, he can go with Ancestral Guardian. You can still go with Ancestral Guardian plus Titanic Lackey. He didn't taunt and heal at all. This is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 15.
It's 15, but there is lifesteal on the board now.
Yeah. And he can't just go for that because that'd be all of his mana.
Right.
I mean, he could go for it because then he'd isolate his hand to Hand of Gul'dan, Argent Squire, and Fiendish Servant. Maybe he gets to Hand of Gul'dan, discard the Hand of Gul'dan? I don't know. That he just needs to... I don't know. It's tough because he can't really control the board either. If he sinks a bunch of damage from these Bluegill Warriors into minions, I mean, that's his reach right there.
The light protects me.
Useful things, eager to share. Get in there and fight, maggot!
Going all in on the damage here. Hoping that he's going to be able to finish it out. He knows high likelihood for this to not work out.
Yeah.
And I mean, Eddie has board clear. Let's see how he chooses to go about it, because you could do it in a few different ways, but this Cartoot Defender, honestly, it's not even necessarily a Cartoot Defender. The fact that there's a Shield of Galakrond also makes it tough for Nalguidan to go through.
Yeah, and the fact that Eddie's just going to be at 12.
How about a new life? How about a new life?
No taunts.
Yeah, I mean, he knows Nalguidan's reach right now. He's used both. The only charger he has left is Bluegill Warrior. He's used both Abusive Sergeants. Wait, has he used both Abusive Sergeants?
I believe he used one. But that Titanic Lackey is brutal. Not that Nalguidan had, like, a very high chance. I think it would just actually be runner. He would have to get the other Soulfire off this hand of Gul'dan. Actually, it wouldn't be runner. He would have a few draws to go for it.
Yeah, like say this draw was Abusive Sergeant. He goes Blue Go Warrior, Abusive Sergeant, Soulfire. But there's a taunt in the way now. That's if Eddie didn't taunt. And I think Eddie might realize that, like, okay, there's a Fringe out. I'm guaranteed to win if I just taunt, right? Because then next turn I get to heal for 4 again, and then I'm out of range of anything.
I wonder.
And this is 5, 6, 7, 15, 16, 17, 18 damage on board. So not quite a lethal setup from Eddie, but I mean, when you're healing for 4 each turn and getting out of range of all of the damage that Nalguidan could do, and you have full board control, just play around the one thing that can kill you. Face.
Impressive.
Yeah, you can see the 3 draws didn't even necessarily impact it. Nalguidan taps out. Rogue has once again taken out the Zoo Warlock, always being able to be effective against some of their board building tactics with a bunch of small tools, a lot of utility coming out of those lackeys, and sometimes just raw power. So well done by Eddie, and now he's up 2-0 with only his Priest remaining. And we've been seeing Priest still be able to hold his own. Obviously, with AoE, Plentiful can just straight up shut down the Zoo, but Demon Hunter and Rogue also kind of struggling a little bit.
Yeah, been some big struggles overall. But Priest has kind of been, at least this week, middle of the road, because we have seen it take some wins in crucial situations. But you can tell that it still has some weaknesses, most notably in their ability to draw cards and having to spend their entire hand to remove. When you go 1 for 1 and you're not picking up any additional value or damage, that's when you kind of miss that lack of significant value generation or card draw, up until very late in the game, that is. But if they can control the early board state and then roll into their big power cards, then that's when it can start getting unlocked. And they do have a lot of tools to try and buy themselves time. And that's the name of the game. But we'll see. It's going to be Warlock again for Nalguidan and the Priest for Eddie. Ooh.
All right, well, I mean, you might as well get it over with. This could be Priest's best matchup on paper, although I guess if you ask some Priest players, they feel like they're good against Rogues as well. I mean, part of the reason why is because Zoo is good at playing all these small minions, and Priest has a lot of AoE right now, and with cheaper cards like Shadow Madness, Holy Nova, Breath of the Infinite, all things that you can do to try to pick apart the board, and you throw in a Wild Pyromancer in there, it feels really hard to consistently build up pressure against them in the early game, especially if they're on coin. And so Eddie just kind of thinking about what's the merit of holding on to some of these cards. Disciple of Galakrond, obviously a great turn 1 play. Is it worth throwing back cards like Disciple of Galakrond and Galakrond just to find more defensive cards in case your opponent has a nutty opening?
If they don't have a nutty opening, then Disciple of Galakrond can find value, which is kind of nice. Just having something to fight forward. Right, that makes sense. The surprise for me was that he threw away the Penance.
Thy blood be born again.
Oh, Lightwell. Woo!
I mean, that's a 2-drop, and something you can kind of keep it up. At least in terms of being able to have a curve and force your opponent to attack into it.
Yeah.
That's an upgrade. Probably.
This is a nice aggressive play from Nalguidan, being able to guarantee the buff of the Fiendish Servant and protecting the Blazing Battle Mage with the Og Merchant. Very difficult for Nalguidan to remove.
Yeah, it's a dice situation, but you gotta kill this Veil Weaver. As far as the Voidwalker, not a big deal. See, deep sigh here from Nalguidan. Losing this game means he would be down 0-3 in the standings and likely to be finishing bottom 4. Doesn't mean that it's completely over yet, but it would make his path to the playoffs that much harder.
Yeah.
It's really open for a Hand of Gul'dan of some sort, but honestly, it's not the worst. It's not the end of the world here if he Nightshide's Matron discards his Soulfire. The idea is that he has this 5/5 that's hard to answer from the Priest. Unless Eddie just has the straight up Shadow Word Death. And Eddie has thrown away a bunch. He's played all the cards that he's kept.
Mm-hmm. Eddie also only plays one Shadow Word Death. So it's less likely to be there. But there is a high reward for life tapping to try and find Hand of Gul'dan. But then you're sacrificing board presence. Oh, it's tough. Alright.
Interesting. Okay.
Hey, I got you, friend.
This is significantly weaker on board, but keeps Nalguidan's hand more dynamic if he picks up Hand of Gul'dan.
Mm-hmm. At the very least, draws closer to it.
Right. And I get it. Like, Nalguidan would be like in a position where if the Nightshade Matron gets answered, he's pretty much just going to start life tapping and playing one attack minions anyways. So he's trying to keep up development. There's a likelihood that he could tap into another 1-drop. His deck is mainly 1-cost minions. If he picks up Scrap Him, that would have been godlike. If he picked up a Hand of Gul'dan, he would be set for the following turn. So there's probably too many reasons for Nalguidan to justify life tapping. Although at my core, TJ, I really wanted to play that 5/5.
Yeah,
It just looked good.
it did. You push 4.
Then you're 2 minions ahead on board.
2 minions, yeah. And Eddie, likely to have an answer to 1, but you're likely to have the answer to both.
Quickly.
Now, if he has the answer to 1, which would be the Blazing Battle Mage, it would mean that you only have 2 power on board. I feel like Eddie wants to get greedy here. Yep.
Well, the benefit now is Nalguidan can use his Nightshade Matron very effectively against Shield of Galakrond. Perhaps that was another thing to consider, which was Nalguidan says, I'm not sure if I want to play the Nightshade Matron unless I'm guaranteed to trade into something and make it effective.
Yeah.
Flip side of that argument, that 5/5 could be going base this turn.
It's interesting lines from Eddie. The coin is a pretty valuable resource, given that generally, his hand is going to be quite expensive, and that he has Wild Pyromancer. Also, Nalguidan has shown that his hand is not that powerful. I mean, yes, he's been able to just play minions on curve, but that's not what the Zoo Warlock is designed to do, because if all it did was just play Zoo minions on curve, it would not be a deck that was brought to Grandmasters as often as it is.
Right.
And if Eddie just kind of kept up with it by playing Penance plus Lightwell that turn, and then following that up with a Shield of Galakrond, he bakes some health. Maybe that gives him an out, because right now he's at 14. Nalguidan has a Soulfire in hand.
Oh my goodness. And Nalguidan not getting greedy with his Nightshade Matron ends up paying off, because there is that Shadow Word Death now. Although Eddie doesn't have to necessarily use it, he could just play his Penance instead.
Yeah, and this is what Eddie was setting up for, but again, falling too far behind on board is a realistic, possibility for the deck. Because now he takes 7. Now he not has charge minions in his deck. He has no more life gain outside of Lightwell, which is not reliable life gain. Eddie's got to stabilize quick. Now he can play his entire hand next turn. That's the benefit of getting the second Invoke out.
Yeah.
He gets to play Fate Weaver into Fate Weaver. He's just hoping that he doesn't fall too far behind on health in the meantime.
I wonder if...
Nalguidan has to think about the possibility of Apotheosis. He leaves up a minion and Apotheosis comes out. It essentially corners him out of the game, but at the same time, if he doesn't push face damage, then he never gets Eddie in range of any of his burst. Yeah, has to kind of trade off here, get rid of this Voidwalker, just to be able to make sure that he's not heavily punished by Apotheosis. Oh, Renew. Oh.
We are all bound to
Holy smokes. This was huge. He can't answer the light well. Not the light well. He can't answer the magic carpet, but he picks up a silence.
Might as well, right?
Maybe better to think about the implications of cards like Grave Rune and Soul Mirror as well, though. Because his Bluegill Warrior is going to answer, or his Shadow Word Death, but like he can answer that Nightshade Matron, and then there's only 2 power 'em. Is it better, perhaps, to use Grave Rune so if he picks up any kind of taunt minion, it locks Nalguidan out of the game? That's an example of one. Eddie's Priest deck list doesn't have that many taunts. In fact, he's already used one of his only ones in the form of Shield of Galakron. He's not playing any Card 2 Defender because it's not a Resurrect.
Oh my gosh, he's just going to dump his hand.
Yeah, why not?
I know.
Wow, this is pretty amusing. Think about Priest playing a tempo playstyle here.
Yeah.
But he's far ahead on board now.
Oh no.
Wow.
Okay. Well, that Stone Tusk board now has 3 attack.
Yeah, so if I'm Nalguidan, as much as this position stinks, this is actually a spot where you get to have Warlock's strengths come into play here. Which is, you get to draw 2 cards per turn while your opponent draws 1. Oh my goodness. A Soul Mirror! And the Bluegill Warrior costs 1, TJ!
Jeez. He gets to stick both magic carpets. Oh man.
Now, who's the charge zoo now?
I know, that's crazy. Guardian Og Merchant, that ain't gonna do anything. And a Bluegill Warrior. Oh, such a funny deck. That's it.
Yep. Nalguidan concedes. Eddie's tempo line with the Priest ends up paying off in a really cool way to approach the matchup, considering that most people choose to play a controlled defensive style, but that wraps up our first series 3-0, while Nalguidan is with that inverse score 0-3. Eddie improves to a 2-1 record, so well done to him. Or rather, it is a 3-1 now. But either way, right now, Nalguidan is struggling in Division A. He's going to have to turn it around heading into next week.
Yeah, you know, the light at the end of the tunnel for Nalguidan is the fact that he is in Division A. So less relegation spots means wins out from here, and he's still got shot at playoffs. And even if he doesn't and ends up in the relegation bracket, at least he's got a couple matches to fall back on. It isn't just automatically out, but has been a rough couple weeks for him, and it's going to be a tough one. Got to pull himself up. Maybe some meta changes is what he needs, which we have on the horizon this week, and that'll allow him to show off some other things and maybe be able to pull himself back out of that last place spot. But going to be tough. Going to be tough.
Yep. So, yes, Eddie has ended his week at 2-1 after he was able to face off against 2 of the stronger players in the division as well right now. Language Hacker and Bloodyface were Eddie's first 2 opponents. And those were 2 players who were undefeated heading into this week. So Eddie, his strength of schedule should improve, although he still has yet to play Gallon, who's also kind of been crushing it here in Division A. Switching gears, let's go ahead and look